Imagine planning the happiest day of your life, only to realize it wasn't yours anymore. My parents combined my wedding with my sister's anniversary, and somehow, I ended up with the entire $47,000 bill. When I first got engaged, I thought my parents would be supportive. They always told me they wanted to see me happy, and after years of watching my sister take the spotlight with her big celebrations, I believed this time would finally be mine. I wasn't expecting them to pay for everything. I'm not that entitled, but I hoped they'd at least be fair. My sister, Anna, has always been the golden child. She's older than me, the first to graduate, the first to get married, the one who brought home grandkids. And every year, my parents go above and beyond to celebrate her milestones. Anniversaries, birthdays, baby showers, you name it, they turned it into a family spectacle. So when my fiancé, David, and I set our wedding date, I was excited but also nervous. I knew there would be comparisons. I just didn't realize how far it would go. About 3 months before the wedding, my mom sat me down at the kitchen table. She had that tone, half cheerful, half commanding. "Honey, we've been thinking," she said. "Since Anna's 10-year anniversary falls just a week before your wedding, wouldn't it be wonderful to combine the events? One big family celebration." I blinked. "What do you mean combine?" "Well," she continued, stirring her tea like she was explaining something obvious. "Instead of 2 separate parties, we'll do one. It'll save money, bring everyone together, and Anna won't feel left out." I laughed nervously, thinking she was joking. "Mom, it's my wedding. It's not just a party." She waved her hand. Of course. It will still be your wedding, just with a special acknowledgement of Anna and Mark's anniversary." I felt a pit forming in my stomach. "So basically, half the event is about them?" "Not half, darling. Just a portion. Think of it as sharing joy." I wanted to scream, but part of me hesitated. My parents had already booked the venue and started organizing details without asking me. David noticed my silence and put his hand on mine under the table. "We really wanted this day to be about us," he said firmly. My dad chimed in from his recliner without looking away from the TV. "Don't be selfish. It's family. Besides, we've already made the down payments. You'll thank us later when everyone says how beautiful it was." That was the first time I realized they weren't asking. They were telling. The following weeks were a blur of planning sessions where my mom and sister dominated every conversation. Cake flavors, table decorations, even the music playlist, all had to honor both occasions. At one point, Anna suggested having a second first dance for her and Mark right after David and I. My jaw nearly hit the floor. When I objected, my mom gave me that disappointed look. "Sweetheart, marriage is about compromise. If you can't even share a dance, what does that say about your future?" I felt cornered, but David tried to keep me calm. "Let's just get through it," he whispered one night. "It'll be over in a day. After that, it's just us." I clung to that thought, even as my frustration grew. Then came the financial part. A month before the wedding, I received an email from the venue addressed to me. It was the final invoice, $47,000. My hands shook as I scrolled through the charges. Extra catering for 50 additional guests. A second cake. Extended hours for the band. Additional floral arrangements. Almost every line screamed anniversary add-on. I called my mom immediately. "Why is the invoice in my name?" "Oh, don't worry about that," she said casually. "We thought it'd be easier if all the payments went through you. We'll help out later." "Help out how?" I asked, my voice rising. "This is $47,000. That's not help out later money, Mom." She sighed. "Honey, you and David both have good jobs. You'll manage. Besides, think of it as a gift to the family. You're starting your marriage by showing generosity." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. David was furious when I told him. "This isn't generosity. It's theft," he said. We tried confronting my parents together. But every time, they twisted the conversation. Family unity. Anna deserves recognition too. You'll make the money back. The closer we got to the wedding date, the more trapped I felt. Canceling wasn't an option. The venue was booked, invitations sent, guests flying in. And every time I looked at Anna, she seemed blissfully unaware of the weight crushing me. Or maybe she was just pretending not to notice. On the night before the wedding, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. David turned to me. "We need to decide. Do we go along with this and swallow it, or do we do something about it?" His tone was calm, but his eyes burned with quiet anger. For the first time, I realized he was right. We had a choice, and that choice would change everything. On the morning of my wedding, I made a decision that no one expected. One that would leave my parents and sister speechless. The morning of my wedding was supposed to feel magical, but instead my stomach twisted with dread. I stared at my reflection in the mirror, veil pinned perfectly, dress flowing like a dream, and all I could think about was that $47,000 bill with my name on it. David came up behind me, adjusting his tie. "You look beautiful," he whispered, kissing my shoulder. Then his voice hardened. "But you don't deserve this. Not today." I swallowed. "So what do we do?" He looked at me in the mirror, his eyes steady. "We take back control. This is our wedding, not their circus." I didn't know what he meant yet, but the determination in his voice gave me courage. When we arrived at the venue, it was worse than I expected. Half the decorations screamed wedding. White roses, candles, elegant drapery. The other half screamed anniversary, giant 10 years balloon arch, a slideshow of Anna and Mark's photos playing on the big screen. Guests walked around confused, whispering to each other. My blood boiled. "They turned our wedding into a joint birthday party," I muttered. David squeezed my hand. "Trust me." The ceremony began, and for a few moments, I managed to forget everything. Walking down the aisle, hearing the music, seeing David waiting for me, it was everything I'd dreamed of. For that short time, it was ours. But the illusion shattered quickly. Right after our vows, just as we kissed, my mom rushed to the microphone. "And now, before we begin the reception, let's all take a moment to celebrate Anna and Mark's 10 wonderful years together." Applause erupted. I froze. David's jaw clenched. Anna and Mark walked up to the stage, smiling and waving like royalty. My mom pulled out a second bouquet, handing it to Anna as if she were a bride too. I wanted to scream, but the guests cheered louder, swept into the spectacle. Through it all, David leaned close to me. "It's okay. Let them have their little show. Just wait." I didn't understand what he was planning until the reception began. The band played, the buffet opened, and people danced. But when it came time for the speeches, David took the microphone. He smiled warmly at the guests, thanking them for coming, making a few jokes. Everyone relaxed. Then he shifted. "I also want to clear up something important," he said, his voice carrying over the room. "Tonight is a celebration of love. But it is our wedding. And unfortunately, my wife and I discovered something disturbing. The entire cost of this event, $47,000, was placed under her name. Without her consent." Gasps spread through the crowd. My parents' faces turned pale. Anna's smile faltered. David continued, his tone calm but sharp. "We want everyone here to enjoy themselves, but you deserve to know the truth. This wasn't generosity from my in-laws. This was manipulation. They made my wife pay for her own wedding, and her sister's anniversary, by tricking her into covering everything." The room went silent. All eyes turned to my parents. My mom stammered, "That's not, he's exaggerating." But David pulled out the printed invoice, holding it up. "Here are the numbers. Catering, extra guests, flowers, second cake, all for the anniversary. And all billed to her." Murmurs broke out among the guests. A few even booed quietly. Anna looked horrified, whispering to Mark. My dad's face flushed deep red, but he stayed silent. I stood there, heart racing, watching years of family favoritism unravel in front of everyone. Then David handed the microphone to me. My voice trembled at first, but then grew stronger. I wanted today to be about love, about starting a life together. Instead, my parents made it about control. But not anymore. From this moment forward, David and I are choosing ourselves. Not manipulation. Not guilt. Just us. The guests applauded. Some stood up, clapping harder. My mom looked like she wanted the ground to swallow her whole. Anna finally spoke up, her voice breaking. I didn't know it was in your name. Mom told me it was all covered by them. I swear I didn't mean for this to happen." For the first time, I believed her. Anna might be spoiled, but she looked genuinely shaken. Tears welled in her eyes. My mom tried to regain control. "Enough of this drama. People came here to celebrate, not listen to complaints." But the damage was done. Guests avoided her, whispering among themselves. My dad slumped in his chair, silent. The rest of the night was awkward but strangely freeing. Instead of worrying about appearances, David and I danced like no one was watching. Friends and cousins came up to congratulate us, whispering support. "Good for you," one aunt said. "It's about time someone called them out." As the night ended, I felt lighter. But the bill still hung over my head. The venue didn't care about family drama. They just wanted payment. and the invoice still had my name on it. On the ride home, David turned to me. "Don't worry. I've got a plan for that too." I frowned. "What plan?" He smiled faintly. "You'll see." The next morning, David revealed a move that not only erased the $47,000 debt, but also taught my parents a lesson they'd never forget. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee and the sight of David typing furiously on his laptop. He looked far too awake for someone who had just gone through a family scandal. "What are you doing?" I mumbled, pulling the blanket around me. He glanced up with a sly smile. "Fixing the $47,000 problem." I sat up quickly. "David, we can't just make it disappear. The contract is in my name. The venue will come after me." He turned the laptop so I could see. "Not if we show them the truth." On the screen was an email draft addressed to the venue manager. Attached were scanned copies of the invoice, our signed wedding contract, and a detailed breakdown highlighting which charges were for wedding essentials and which were clear add-ons for the anniversary. David had even compiled screenshots of messages from my mom talking about combining the events. "Look," he explained, pointing at the contract. "This agreement only covers your wedding. No mention of an anniversary party. That means anything outside of the original scope was unauthorized. They cannot legally hold you responsible for it." I blinked. "So you're saying the anniversary charges are invalid?" "Exactly," he said, grinning. "Which means the venue needs to reissue the bill, directly to your parents." I stared at him in awe. "David, you're brilliant." He shrugged. "Law school wasn't a total waste, huh?" By noon, he had sent the email. Within hours, the venue manager responded. They apologized for the confusion, admitted they had been misled by my parents about the scope of the event, and agreed to separate the charges. My heart leapt when I read the final line. "You are only responsible for the wedding expenses totaling $18,200. The remaining $28,800 related to the anniversary will be billed to your parents directly." I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. "They're going to flip." "Oh, they will," David said with satisfaction. "And for once, they'll be the ones stuck cleaning up their own mess." Later that afternoon, my phone rang. It was my mom. I hesitated but answered. "What did you do?" she hissed, her voice sharp. "The venue just called us demanding payment. They said the anniversary wasn't part of the contract." I kept my tone calm. "That's because it wasn't. You put everything in my name without asking, and David fixed it. You're responsible for your part." "You ungrateful child," she snapped. "After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us?" I bit back anger. "Mom, you tried to hijack my wedding and bury me in debt. This isn't about gratitude. It's about boundaries." There was silence on the other end, followed by my dad's voice, low and frustrated. "We'll handle it," he muttered before hanging up. For the first time, I felt free. But the fallout was just beginning. Word spread quickly through the family. Relatives who had witnessed David's speech at the wedding now heard the full story. How my parents had been forced to take responsibility for the anniversary bill. Some defended them, saying they only wanted to bring the family together. But most sided with us. "It was selfish," one cousin texted me. "They embarrassed themselves, not you." Anna called a few days later, her voice soft. "I'm so sorry," she said. "I really didn't know they put it all on you. If I had, I never would have agreed to the party." I believed her. She had redeemable traits, even if she often lived in her own bubble. "It's not your fault, Anna," I said. "But maybe next time, ask a few more questions before letting Mom run the show." She chuckled sadly. Lesson learned. Meanwhile, my parents went radio silent. No calls, no texts. I thought maybe they were too ashamed to face me, but then an envelope arrived in the mail. Inside was a check for $10,000 with a sticky note. "This is all we can help with right now." David raised an eyebrow. $10,000? That barely covers a third of their share. I sighed. "It's something, I guess." He shook his head. "It's another manipulation. They want you to feel guilty and cover the rest." He was right. And this time, I wasn't falling for it. I sent the check back with a short note. "This is your responsibility. Please pay the venue directly." It felt terrifying but empowering. Weeks passed, and eventually, the venue confirmed the anniversary bill had been settled, paid in full by my parents. They never told me how, but I imagine it wasn't easy for them. For once, they had to make sacrifices instead of expecting me to. David and I settled into married life with a sense of relief. We'd faced our first real test as a couple, and won. More importantly, I had learned something vital. Love without boundaries isn't love at all. Still, part of me wondered if my relationship with my parents was beyond repair. Could we ever go back to normal after this? That question haunted me until the next family gathering. At a cousin's birthday dinner, my mom stood up to give a toast, and what she said left the entire room frozen in shock, including me. The air at my cousin Emily's birthday dinner was tense the moment David and I walked in. People smiled and greeted us, but there was an undercurrent, like everyone was waiting for something to happen. I knew my parents were here. I hadn't seen them since the wedding fiasco, and my stomach twisted at the thought of facing them again. When I spotted my mom near the head of the table, she looked thinner, more tired than usual. My dad sat stiffly beside her, avoiding eye contact. Anna waved at me from across the room, giving me a small smile that seemed genuine. David whispered, "You okay?" I nodded, though my hands trembled slightly. Let's just get through dinner. For the first hour, things were surprisingly normal. We ate, chatted politely, and even laughed a little at Emily's goofy birthday cake, shaped like a giant paintbrush for her art hobby. I started to think maybe the night would pass without drama. Then my mom stood up. She tapped her glass with a fork, and the chatter died down. "I'd like to say a few words," she announced. David's hand immediately tightened around mine under the table. My heart skipped. My mom cleared her throat, her voice steady but softer than usual. "I know the past few months have been difficult. Mistakes were made." She glanced at me, then looked down quickly. I wanted to make something special for both my daughters, but in doing so, I lost sight of what mattered. I pressured, I controlled, and I caused pain. The room was silent. She took a shaky breath. "I love my daughters. Both of them. And I realize now that love doesn't mean forcing things to be my way. It means letting go, respecting boundaries, trusting them to live their own lives." My jaw nearly hit the floor. Was this an apology? From her? "I can't undo what happened," she continued. "But I want to say in front of everyone that I'm sorry. To my daughter and to her husband. You deserved a day that was only yours. And you deserved parents who supported you, not burdened you." A lump formed in my throat. I didn't know what to say. My dad stood reluctantly. "I'll keep this short," he muttered. "She's right. We handled it badly. We'll try to do better." It wasn't much, but coming from him, it was practically a confession. For a moment, the room was frozen in shock. Then people began clapping lightly, as if unsure what else to do. Anna dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. David looked at me, his expression soft. "You okay?" he whispered. I think so," I said, my voice trembling. When my mom sat down, she glanced at me again, and for the first time in years, I saw sincerity in her eyes instead of control. After dinner, she pulled me aside quietly. "I don't expect forgiveness overnight," she said, her voice breaking. "But I hope someday you'll see that I was trying, clumsily, maybe selfishly, but I thought I was helping." I nodded slowly. "I believe you thought that. But Mom, you hurt me. You put me in debt without asking. That's not helping. That's controlling." She wiped her eyes. "I know. And I don't want to lose you. I'm willing to change." It was the first time I'd ever heard her admit fault without deflecting. I wasn't ready to forget everything, but I could see a crack in her armor, a chance maybe for something better. Over the next weeks, things began to shift. My parents called less to dictate and more to simply check in. Anna made a real effort to include me in her life without making it all about her. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe I wasn't the forgotten child anymore. Still, the wound was deep. Some nights I'd lie awake replaying everything. Her smile when she said combining the events would be wonderful. My dad's indifference, the suffocating pressure to pay for something that wasn't mine. Those memories didn't vanish just because of a public apology. But David reminded me of something important one night as we cooked dinner. "Revenge doesn't always mean destroying someone," he said. "Sometimes it's forcing them to face themselves and deciding for yourself if you'll let them back in." I realized he was right. My parents had faced consequences. They'd been humiliated publicly, forced to pay thousands they'd tried to dump on me, and made to watch as their golden image cracked in front of family. That was justice enough. Now, it was up to me to choose what came next. And I chose peace. Not forgetfulness, not blind forgiveness, but peace. Months later, as David and I walked hand in hand through our new apartment, boxes scattered around, I realized something. My wedding hadn't been perfect. In fact, it had been a disaster in many ways. But it gave me something priceless. The clarity to break free from old patterns and start my marriage with boundaries strong enough to last a lifetime. That was the lesson. Love is not about pleasing everyone. It's about protecting the life you're building, even if it means standing up to the people who raised you. And as I closed the last moving box, I smiled. Because for the first time, the weight of my parents' expectations was no longer on my shoulders. It was finally just me and David, on our own terms. A few months later, just when I thought things had settled, I got a call from the venue manager. "Hi," she said cautiously. "I just wanted to let you know that your parents' check for the anniversary balance bounced. Twice." My heart sank. "So, what happens now?" She sighed. "They finally had to settle it with a credit card. But here's the funny part," she paused, almost hesitant to tell me. "They used your mom's emergency joint card, the one she shares with Anna." I froze. "Wait, you mean Anna is paying half of it now?" "Looks that way," the manager said. "We don't care where it comes from, as long as it's paid." When I told David, he nearly doubled over laughing. "So after all that, your sister ended up footing half the bill for her own anniversary party." Poetic justice. The irony hit me like a thunderclap. My parents' scheme to shift everything onto me had backfired so perfectly that Anna, without even realizing, had been forced to pay for the very party that was supposed to celebrate her. When Anna found out weeks later, she called me in tears. But instead of anger, her voice carried something else. "You know what? It's fair. I benefited the most, I should have questioned it more. Maybe this is the universe making it right." And for the first time, I realized the cycle had truly broken. Not only had my parents been exposed, but their golden child had finally seen the cracks too. In the end, the lesson was sharper than I could have planned. If you try to steal someone's day, the bill might just end up in your own hands. My parents tried to trap me with a $47,000 debt, and in the end, they made Anna pay for her own anniversary. If this story made you feel something, don't forget to subscribe for more.